Sorry.
Yeah. Alrighty, we are back on our candidate profile series today, and we're going really local today, which is important. We are covering the sheriff's race in Madison County, Alabama, which contains Alabama's largest city, the city of Huntsville. And we have on today with us the Democratic nominee, Mr. Brett Jones, who is running against the incumbent Republican Kevin Turner. Brett, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Jake. I really appreciate it.
If you don't mind telling our listeners a little about your background and what inspired you to run.
Well, I started my career off in the Navy where I became a Navy SEAL. I did that for from 93 to 2003, so I was in the Navy for 10 years. When I got out of the Navy, I went to go work for the CIA. In fact, they actually recruited me before I was even out of the Navy. To basically do the kind of the same stuff I did as a Navy SEAL, but this was I was what they called a GRS agent, which is their global response staff. And basically, my job was to protect, Americans in, hostile environments. I did that for 13 years. I think all said and done, I deployed something like it was over 30 times. So it was a lot. Um, I let's see, then I came back and I had started my husband and I had started this business here in Huntsville in 2011. It was a security firm. We did that. Um, and I became a police officer during that period. And then we started another company that makes radios and dispatches for first responders. And yeah, that's basically. And I've worked at a couple different police departments here locally. I work one department part-time that I've worked at since I became a police officer, and I've worked at New Hope. I helped them out last year for about a year, and then now I'm the training coordinator at the UH Police Department.
Um, Talking about, sheriff's departments, most people, I guess, don't realize that in Alabama, there's a lot of small communities that only have part-time police departments or no police department. Um, does the sheriff's department handle those responsibilities mainly, or is it mainly an administrative?
Well, that's a good question. I think like a lot of people don't really understand like what the responsibility of a sheriff is. And so the sheriffs, their jurisdiction is the entire county. And they are the law enforcement for the areas that don't have a police officer. So out in the county, they are the primary law enforcement out there. Um, and the job is also to work with the different municipalities and their police departments throughout the entire county.
Where I live in Jackson County, I live in a city that has a full-time police department, so they're responsible for our city police. But there are vast areas of our county where the sheriff's department is. Um, how does that work in a such a large county like Madison, where you have such differences? Because you have Huntsville, which is the largest city in the state, and then you may have parts of the county that are very sparsely populated. How does that affect response time?
Well, so one of the big things that my campaign is running on is putting more deputies on the road. When I become the sheriff, I'm going to cut programs or reduce programs that aren't, if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, then I'm going to, allocate those resources to putting more deputies out on the road. Because the response times in the counties aren't great, right? Like I'll shoot straight with you. And I would like to see where we have one deputy per zone in Madison County. Um, I'm a small town cop. That's sort of I started off in a small town, and I'll tell you, there's a really, the key word being community policing, right? I know like a lot of politicians like to throw that word out there, but it's real. Like when you have somebody that works in a specific area for a decent amount of time, they get to know the people, they build relationships with the people, they can spot problems long before anyone else can. It's a good thing. And plus, once the community trusts an officer, then they're helpful in solving crimes and deterring crime.
One of the things that I think you were talking about, getting to know the community, um, that I've heard proposed is they want officers to walk a beat instead of being in the car all the time. Do you think there's value in that?
I think it depends on where you're just talking about that. I think having a foot patrol is certainly something that could be beneficial in downtown Huntsville or Madison, and particularly when you have large venues of things going on. That's definitely something that could be beneficial. But having a guy working out in the county on foot, he's not gonna be much good to nobody if he
Yeah.
can't get there pretty quick. Because.
Yeah, when you're out in the county, distances become quite large very quickly. I have a lot of listeners in other parts of the country, and I don't think they understand quite how rural some parts of Alabama get very quickly.
Yeah,
Um, how would you be over courthouse security as well?
yeah, that's one of the roles and responsibility of the sheriff as well. Yeah.
How has I know that in 2018 and 2022, one of the big issues in sheriff's races across the state was the inmate food program. Um, and how has that changed? Because I know at the time that the budget, what was left over, went into the sheriff's like personal funds. Has that changed since then?
I'm not really sure on the structure for how the financial structure for that is. That's something I'd have to do a little more research on. But what I can tell you about the jail is that I have some really big plans for Madison County Jail, and just jail reform in general. I think when you talk about policing, right? I think most cops will agree with me when I say that 90% or more of the people that we arrest, you're going to find drugs, alcohol, or mental health issues somewhere in that equation. And, I feel like we are missing a golden opportunity to try and address these issues because you have their attention. You have these people, they're there at the jail for, however long the judge said that they need to be there. And it's a golden opportunity because what happens is this jail is a revolving door. It's the same people in, the same people out, same people in, same people out. And it's like, how do we break that cycle? And yeah, I think it's programs like Crystal Meth Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, faith-based programs like Celebrate Recovery. It's opening the doors to uh, nonprofits and churches to come in and mentor and become a part of these people's lives. Because here's the thing is we get an inmate, they come in and they do all the work, right? They're going to meetings, they're doing everything that they need to do to prepare themselves to be a productive member of society when they're released. And then when we release them, they go right back to the same environment that they were, and that doesn't work. And so it's really important. We need, churches and nonprofits to say, hey, I'm going to walk with this person. When they're out, I'm going to be there. I'm going to help put them in a different environment and give them the best shot at doing at breaking this cycle, right? Because at the end of the day, it just helps the community. Like the whole, like it reduces crime. That's the whole point of this, right? Is we want to reduce crime and change people's lives.
I I think that is one of the best responses I have heard in a long time about jail and, the incarceration of people because it recognizes one that there are people that need to be, unfortunately incarcerated. But there's a reason that they're continuing to be incarcerated. And if we can break that link, maybe they can, overcome these struggles that they're encountering.
Yeah, and one of the other things I want to address too is the mental health aspect of it. I know that we have some really good programs here and organizations like Wellstone and some others that really want to help with that as well. Um, and yeah, I would like to see a jail where we have a licensed mental health clinician that sees every inmate when they come in and can say, hey, all right, this person is definitely needs some work and can set up a program where they see this person to because it's all about the whole thing, right? It's the big picture. It's the mental health, it's the drugs, it's the alcohol. It's how do we best help these people to not be to break that cycle, like you said.
Um, I know that in Alabama, there's a lot of restrictions on bail and on that type of thing. Is that all handled through the court system, or does the sheriff have any role in that, or is that
Well,
all?
yeah, so generally there's a bond schedule, right? Which means that like say I arrest somebody for a misdemeanor, right? And so there's a lot of onus on the police officer to determine what that bond amount is. And there's a schedule. So usually they'll say like, if it's a misdemeanor, it's anywhere from, 300 to $1,000 or, somewhere in there. And then for felonies, it's a much larger amount.
Um, One of the things that I have really always struggled with seeing is you hear these horror stories about people that are, in county jails for extended amounts of time, like, possibly more than a year. Is that more a court system or is that more of a, issue within the sheriff's office?
I think that would be a court issue for sure. And then I'm sure a lot of that also has to do with um, if somebody's going to be transferred to a longer term facility like a prison, that there's a whole process that is involved with that. I think the job of the sheriff when it comes to the jail is to make sure that we are doing what the judge is ordered to do.
Ha does Madison County have an agreement with ICE? Are they working with ICE and Border Patrol or
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: is I think that anytime, I'm sure that they are. I'm sure that they are working with immigration. I'm sure that they're working with the FBI. I'm sure they're working with a lot of federal agencies, because that's kind of what you have to do when somebody breaks a law, especially like a federal. So I think under my, when I become the sheriff, it's not, I'm not going to turn my deputies into immigration agents. With that being said, if somebody, does a violent act and they're undocumented, then yeah, I'm absolutely gonna to let immigration know that we have this person that's undocumented and they just, murdered somebody. Um, but that's really it. Like I'm not in the business of breaking up homes and putting fear into the public. My job is to keep all people safe, all the people safe in Madison County.
one of the things that I believe is occurring when you have these local law enforcement going after undocumented who have that's the only crime they've committed, is being in the country without authorization, is you put a fear into that community of saying when they've been a victim of a crime, if they're, a victim of domestic abuse, if they're a child, that is being exploited, because the fear is then, oh my God, my family's going to be broken up. I'm going to be, kicked out of the country. There's no way I'm going to, report this crime. And I think that that is your solution is a much better solution than these counties that are working with ICE and helping, with checkpoints.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've all seen sort of, what has happened, like in Minneapolis and other places. And I don't think anybody wants that here in Madison County. We
Um,
want this to be a safe place for people to live.
um, how many deputies does the sheriff's department have currently, and what is your goal to get it to?
I think they're fully staffed actually right now. I wouldn't know the exact number. I mean, I could do a quick Google search and let you know. But yeah, so I know that they're fully staffed, but I also know that there are a lot of programs within the sheriff's office that need a real hard look. All right. And I think that is what my job initially is going to be, is to go in there and say, okay, why is it that we only have, six deputies out on the road? That's an issue for a county this size. And so it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of tough decisions going in and saying, all right, look, this program is not, it's not doing what it needs to do, and so it's gone. And these officers need to get back out on the road. I think having a strong investigations and a strong patrol division is going to be a big priority in my in my campaign leading up to there. Um, but yeah, because like preventing crimes and then solving them quickly. That's the backbone of any law enforcement agency.
In Jackson County, with the exception of Scottsboro, SROs are handled by the county. Um, is how is it in Madison? How is it in Madison County?
So yeah, they do have an SRO program. It's funny, we're actually working on a video yesterday that we're going to be putting out talking specifically about that. As a parent, I have the fear of an active shooter or something awful happening in one of the schools. And it's been, and I know I'm not the only one. And I believe that our SROs, or school resource officers, need to be some of the highest trained people in the police or in the sheriff's office. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure. So, my background is with the Navy SEAL and the CIA. And I can tell you that I was, fortunate enough to be a part of a program that was the best program in modern history for keeping people alive and protecting people. And there's a lot that I learned through that, and there's a lot that I think we can instill in our SRO. So, one of the things I'm saying is I'm going to personally train our school resource officers, um, because there's just not time for backup to arrive, right? When an active shooter situation happens, it's time that kills people. And having deputies that I have 100% trust in that will go in and get the job done decisively and as safely as possible, that's what we're looking for, is just keeping our kids safe and our teachers.
One of the things that has come out of some recent active shooter situations in Uvalde and in Parkland were that, SROs were on scene, and in both cases, there, did not go in actively. And that's one of the things I think I really would like to see maybe addressed in training for SROs is, that sometimes you may have to run in. Because in those two situations, you in Uvalde, you had officers standing outside the classroom, and in Parkland, you had, an officer standing outside at his car, and it's just horrible to think
It's
about.
unacceptable. That's 100% unacceptable. Um, I'm as somebody that has actually been in active shooter situations, I can tell you that, well, one, they're scary, but two, when you're trained to be able to deal with those as an individual, to negotiate hallways, intersections, fatal funnels as an individual, that's you always fall back on that training. When things get really scary really quick, you default to your training. And if your training isn't cutting it, then it's gonna be a failure. And so that's why I am going to make sure that our SROs are some of the highest trained people in the sheriff's office. Well, here's the thing is I believe we have everything here in Madison County to make it one of the safest counties in America. I have 100%, faith in that. And it requires a lot of things to change currently and a lot of training to be implemented. And when it comes to our kids, I'm never going to be comfortable, Jake. There's uh if somebody says, hey, Brett, like the security at all these schools is great. We're good. I'm like, no, we're never going to be good. We always have to be making it better. We always have to be looking for weaknesses. We always have to be working with the faculty and the parents because threats just aren't, that's not the only threat in active shooter. You have internal threats, you have bullying, there's a lot of things that happen in a school that our SROs need to be the best. I want them to be the best, and they will be.
Um, t Talking about Huntsville and, Madison County, it's consistently ranked one of the best places to live in America. What do you see, though, is the number one issue pertaining to crime and law, in order in the county? Like, what's the biggest weakness?
I think some areas that certainly could use a lot of help is, like I said, is having more deputies out on the road and becoming a part of the community. I would like to be able to go to anyone in any part of this county and say, hey, who's your deputy? And they're like, oh, it's Sergeant so and so or Corporal this or that is not something that's happening right now. I think that's a big part of it. I think also working with the other police departments, with you know having quarterly meetings, I think would be a great start. Getting all the chiefs together and discussing ways that we could all help each other out, because it is a team. Regardless of the size of the police department. If it's a one-man police department, they're welcome at that table as if it was, a big police department like Huntsville or Madison. I think that's also, a great way to start. I think also bringing all of our investigators in as well, and meeting and creating a way of communication between all of the investigators to help solve crimes. There are some in existence, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think technology, I think that's another thing. I think that there are some clunky issues that need to be resolved with some older tech, old expensive tech. And I think bringing in, less expensive and, these, yeah, I think just cutting a lot of that is going to be very helpful, streamlining, the communication between the different departments, is something that we need to do.
This is a two-part question. So, you work for part-time, you said, for a local police department. What do you see as the biggest issue currently between the sheriff's department and the cities, and what are deputies telling you is their biggest, concern facing the department?
I think what I just talked about is a big part of what, deputies and other police officers are telling me. Is that, is there is an us against them. I think there's this sort of ego that just comes with this line of work in general, right? And I think we have to cut through that and say, look, we are all on the same team. Like we have to have these open table dialogues, these round table discussions with all of the police chiefs, where every police chief's input is important, right? And I think we have gotten so far away from that, that we have these little pockets of islands of law enforcement, and I think I am the man that will help bring all these people back to the round table and working together.
What has been your most rewarding day in your profession?
I can tell you that, and it's not even my story. So my police chief, I was just starting to work, and he's like a really good friend of mine, and he was very patient with me in the beginning, as you learn, with law enforcement. But there was this day where this gentleman came into his office, a young guy, probably 28, 29. And I was sitting in his office with him. We were talking about something, and this guy came in and sat down and started telling him, our chief, like how grateful he was for him arresting him. Um, he had a pretty bad drug problem, and my chief put a lot of effort and time into that individual. Not obviously he had to arrest him because of the whatever the crime was, something drug related, I'm sure. But also he put effort into checking in on him, and to see that actually happen, where this guy comes in and thanks him for all the work that he put in, because he was, like, at the time, 4 years sober. He had a great job. It was the most beautiful thing. And I think that seeing that is in instances like that is the most rewarding thing that you can experience in this um, profession. At the end of the day, it's about saving lives, changing lives, and then protecting people's property in that order. And when you see, that you have saved somebody's life or you have changed somebody's life, that's it's magical. It makes all those hard days worth it.
Um, you know, that may sound odd to a person, who doesn't fully grasp that, but incarcerating someone could be the best thing that ever happened to them. It could save their life.
Yeah, it's yeah, I agree.
Um, on the flip side of that, what's been your most challenging day? And has there been a day that tested your ability to come back in the next day?
Hmm. The toughest day. I think, honestly, I think the most challenging days that I have nothing to do with an incident, with like something awful happening, or something like that. I think the most challenging things that I've had in law enforcement have been always about personalities. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I think people can, a lot of times, can be very challenging. And, I look at it like I have a big responsibility as a police officer, because I deal with people most likely on one of the worst days of their life. And that's a big responsibility. And that requires patience, that requires compassion. it can be very demanding. So I think personalities are often the biggest challenge for me.
Um, what is your plan to work with other sheriffs in your surrounding counties? Is there a program for the sheriffs in the surrounding area to come together and like game plan and work out ideals that are working for them?
Yeah, I know that there's that they have meetings, just like the Chiefs do. The Chiefs all will get together, and yeah, and I absolutely plan on sitting down, having lunch with every single one of the our surrounding sheriffs. Um, because that's those relationships are important, and being able to I think really it's like in any relationship it's always about communication, right? And especially in law enforcement, that's like absolutely, and being able to communicate and issues and how we can help each other out is really important.
Um, so where can people find out more information about your campaign?
So if you go to votebrettjones.com, that's our website. We're on all the social media. You can hit me up on if you want to like talk to me directly. I have a Facebook page, Brett Jones. Just type in Brett Jones is the one with the blue check mark and the space right here. And Messenger is a great way to get a hold of me. Also through the our Facebook, or I'm sorry, our campaign page, there's a way to get in touch with me via email if that's how you prefer.
So I know that in certain races in this state, there are limitations on the candidate personally asking for donations. Is sheriff's one of those races?
No, no, it's kind of funny actually. Like if you wanted to donate $1 million, you could. It's yeah, as long as you're an American, that's kind of like the
All right.
um
Alrighty. So if you are listening to this and you would like to see police reform and reform at the local level, I'm going to put in the show notes a link to you have an Act Blue, I assume.
yes, I do.
Okay.
And yep.
Brett's Act Blue page to donate to him. Um, Madison County is not a county in which you can just hand out placards. You got to do radio, TV ads, and billboards.
Yeah, there's a lot that we got to do for sure.
So I hope that everyone will donate a little bit of money to Brett and help him turn the Madison County Sheriff's Department into his vision. We thank Brett for coming on with us today. And as always, in the coming weeks, we'll have more candidates on. Hopefully, we'll get the big fish that I'm after and discussing with their campaign. So I will see you all then.